Section 6. Comments by the Office of General Counsel. Tab 3 is a memorandum from the General Counsel to the DCI, dated 21st December 1954. Commenting on Subproject 35. And stating in part that there are no fundamental legal objections if the probable benefits are considered a fair return for this expenditure. The amendment to the subproject contemplates only an increase in funds and in no way changes any other aspect of the project. The project has been referred back to the OGC, even though no change in its structure is contemplated. And tab 4 contains his comments. Section 7, Justification. The advantages and benefits accruing to the agency outlined in tab A are felt by TSS to provide adequate and complete justification for the expenditure of the additional sum herein requested, which brings the total CIA contribution to $375,000. The most important of these advantages and benefits may be summarized as follows. Fuller explanations may be found in tab A. A. 1/6 of the total space in the new hospital wing will be available to the chemical division of TSS, thereby providing laboratory and office space, technical assistance, equipment, and experimental animals. B. Agency sponsorship of sensitive research projects will be completely deniable. C. Full professional cover will be provided for up to 3 biochemical employees of the chemical division. D. Human patients and volunteers for experimental use will be available under controlled clinical conditions within the full supervision of censored. The text is censored, just for clarification, so I will use the word censored to describe that. Subproject 35 was originally conceived in October and November of 1954, and the ensuing 6 months have indicated that increasing emphasis and importance are being placed on the chemical division's work in this field. The facilities of the hospital and the ability to conduct controlled experiments under safe clinical conditions using materials with which any agency connection must be completely deniable will augment the complement other programs recently taken over by TSS, such as censored. Downgraded to censored. And then you have illegible of 187475. Illegible, looks like I might say June 1977. Well, I'm going to continue reading over the main body of the text and, well, never mind. I'll just read as usual. You have illegible, looks like the letters CL by 1, maybe 87475. Copy number 1 of 1 copy. And that's the end of page 133 onto page 134. It was originally thought that at least 18 months would elapse after the building funds had been raised for the facilities. Before the facilities would be finished and could be occupied by TSS. This lengthy delay has now been overcome when Censored has raised the $500,000, which his fund will ostensibly contribute. He will then be allowed to use existing space in the present hospital in order that he may build up the organization which will later occupy the new wing. This means that TSS will be able to begin to take advantage of this cover situation within a matter of months instead of waiting for a year and a half. Section 8. Security. Security matters and details are being coordinated with the TSS liaison and security officer. Security of transmittal of the funds and coverage arrangements are described in Tab A and remain unchanged. Section 9. Agreement with Censored. The agreement with Censored is described in Tab A, and the extent of his cooperation and the control over his actions remain unchanged. Section 10. Resultant financial saving. The total contribution of $375,000 by the CIA will result in an additional $375,000 in matching funds provided under Public Law 221. It is felt that the expenditure of these total funds is justified by the importance of the programs which will be pursued at the new facility, even though the CIA contribution is increased under this amended project. The total of federal funds remain unchanged. The use of this facility will allow work to proceed under conditions of cover and security which would be impossible to obtain anywhere else without an expenditure of equivalent or greater funds. In addition, by funding individual projects for this facility through the Censored, no charge will be incurred for overhead expense. If research projects Censored are openly sponsored by the U.S. government, it is customary to pay an overhead rate equivalent to 80% of salaries. However, if a non-profit fund, such as Censored sponsors research, the funds granted for the work are customarily used only to pay for salaries, equipment, and supplies, but not overhead. The agency thus buys considerably more research through Censored than would be the case if no cutout were used. Downgraded to what may say confidential. Illegible of 1/8, illegible, and possibly the numbers 7/5. You have mostly illegible in the third line here. It might say the similar information to the previous pages, but I am not going to assume. And then similar could be said for the fourth line. I'm not sure if the number is 187475. Looks like it, but that is the end of page 134, beginning page 135. So it might say memorandum for, and then this portion is largely illegible. One moment. And then it may say on the bottom section, herewith the file on MKULTRA subproject 35 with our comments on the legal aspects. While there is no legal control and there are certain incidental considerations, there is no fundamental legal objection. If The probable benefits are considered a fair return for this expenditure. And then underneath you have a chunk of censored text. General Counsel. Date is December 22nd, 1954. And the page 135, beginning of page 136. So Project 35, Project MKUltra, for the purpose of establishing a cover organization for highly sensitive projects in the field of covert biological, chemical, and radiological warfare. Section 1, Background of Project MKUltra. In 1953, the DCI approved Project MKUltra, which established procedures and controls under which research projects in highly sensitive fields could be carried out by TSS without the necessity of signing the usual contracts. The procedures The approved procedures apply censored over all research and development budget, and no additional funds are required. Controls established in the Project Review Committee approval of the research and development program, other than the signing of a contract, remained unchanged, and special provisions for audit are included. All files are retained by TSS. These procedures and controls were approved since it is highly undesirable from a policy and security point of view that contracts be signed indicating agency or government interest in this field of endeavor. In many great instances, the work must be conducted. In other cases, the individuals involved are unwilling to have their names on a contract which remains out of their control in our files. Experience has shown that qualified, competent individuals in the field of physiological, psychiatric, and other biological sciences are very reluctant to enter into signed agreements of any sort which would connect them with this activity, since such connection might seriously jeopardize their professional reputations. When Project MKUltra was approved, it was not contemplated that it would be used for the establishment of cover. Over 40 individual research and development projects have been established under this framework and have been carried out extremely successfully, both from technical and administrative points of view. The experience gained in handling these projects have emphasized that establishment of better cover both for the projects and for associated agency scientists is of utmost importance. Subproject 35 would establish such cover. Downgraded to illegible by the authority of 187475, date June 1977. I'm going to skip over these other edited or cut it out words. So that's page 136, now page 137. Section 2, Background of the Censored. The censored was incorporated in the censored. It has a board of directors of 6 members, one of whom is censored, who acts as a executive director of the fund. Censored has solicited funds from various individuals to finance a program of basic research in the chemotherapy of cancer, asthma, hypertension, psychosomatic disorders, and other chronic diseases. Since 1951, Censored has cooperated with the chemical division of TSS and acted smoothly and efficiently, both as a cutout for dealing with contractors in the fields of covert chemical and biological warfare, and as a prime contractor for certain areas of biological research. Projects presently being handled for the agency by the fund are administered under the controls and procedures previously approved for MKULTRA. 3. Background of censored. Censored is internationally known as a censored in the field of censored research and is censored. In the past, he has been associated in a research capacity with both the censored. During the war, censored served as a censored in the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery in the Navy. Since then, he has maintained a consulting relationship to the Navy Medical Research Program. Censored is top secret cleared and witting of agency sponsored of the programs carried out by the fund, as are two other members of the fund's board of directors. Section 4. Censored Fund. Censored has been actively engaged in a campaign to raise funds for the purpose of erecting a new clinical research wing on the existing censored. The research wing will consist of a building 6 stories high, 320 feet long, and 50 feet wide. 2/3 of the space will be research laboratories and offices, while 100 research beds will occupy the remainder. Censored participation in the fundraising campaign outlined below will result in his having control of 1/6 of the total space, in addition to the basement, and that's page 137. Now on to page 138. Basement and general outpatient facilities. In this effort, Censored has secured the enthusiastic support of the medical faculty and the officers of the university, who have carried the preliminary arrangements forward to the maximum extent of their resources. Section 5. Financial situation. The university will require about $3 million for the censored story edition. This sum is exclusive of the cost of land and the heating and power supply, which are already available at the site. At the present time, under Public Law 221, funds are available to match funds raised by the university. The university has allocated $1 million to this project and will assume upkeep and staffing obligations. Censored has agreed that if CIA will provide Censored a grant of $125,000, Censored will match this amount and make a total donation of $250,000 to the University Building Fund. This agency's contribution will be made under the condition that it will be refunded if construction does not take place. TSS has discussed this situation with Censored and has encouraged Censored to donate $500,000 to the building project on the basis that Censored will be conducted in the new wing. Censored, though aware of our interest in the building, is unwitting of our specific fields of research and individual projects. In summary, the financial situation would be as follows: $1 million Censored, $250,000 donation from Censored, $125,000 supplied by the CIA, $1,250,000 matched funds from Public Law 221, 500,000 censored, $3 million total. Although it is recognized that the federal contribution of $1,250,000 under PL 221 is seemingly inflated by reason of the inclusion of the CIA contribution in that of censored, actually the value to the CIA is $250,000 and not just $125,000 in the amount of CIA's contribution. Furthermore, the inclusion of CIA contribution in that of censored is the best method of maintaining security. Downgraded to confidential. By the authority of 187475, date June 1977. Illegible IMPDET CL by 187475, copy number 1 of 2 copies. End of page 138, beginning of page 139. Section 6. Difficulties faced by TSS. It has been generally recognized for some time that the external research activities of the chemical division of TSS in the field of covert biological, chemical, and radiological warfare are sorely in need of proper cover. Although Project MKULTRA provides excellent administrative and financial cover for projects, it does not afford cover for scientific or technical personnel. MKUltra has been used for dealing through censored as a cutout and for working directly with individuals or private companies. The use of censored in the future will be increasingly limited due to a. The increasing number of people who, albeit properly cleared, are aware of the agency connection with censored. B. The feeling by censored that the agency employees contacting him, doctors Gottlieb, censored, etc., have no cover of any sort and consequently expose him to unnecessary and highly undesirable personal risk. And C. The widespread intra-agency awareness of the nature of the relationship between the fund and the agency. Another serious problem faced by TSS/CD as a result of lack of suitable cover is the difficulty in planning careers for technical and scientific personnel in the biological field. A long-range career concept of activities in this field inevitably includes proper cover for the individual concerned. The availability of research facilities at censored will offer an excellent opportunity to solve many of the above problems, and censored is willing and able to make any reasonable arrangements to suit our needs. Up to 3 chemical division employees can be integrated into censored program for work in the new hospital wing on the agency's research projects. Although career planning was not a consideration when planning the procedures and controls established by Project MKUltra, nevertheless, this particular subproject, in addition to its primary objective, will be of very great secondary help. Downgraded to confidential by the authority of 187475, date June 1977. IMPDT CL by 187475, copy number 1, or there's a slash, of 2. End of page 139, beginning of page 140. Will be a very great secondary help in simplifying and eliminating many of the very awkward and dangerous conditions facing certain chemical division employees. Section 7. Advantages and benefits of accruing to TSS. The contemplated arrangements will result in many advantages and benefits, including the following. A. 1/6 of the total space in the new research wing is to be available to censored, and in turn will be available to the chemical division of TSS. This will provide laboratory and office space, technical assistance, equipment, and experimental animals for use of chemical division personnel in connection with specific future projects. B. The cost of division projects which are to be carried out under this cover will be covered by funds made available through Project MKUltra, and projects will be subject to the procedures and controls established for MKUltra. The funds will be passed through censored as has been done in the past. Censored in turn will either pay expenses directly or transfer the money to the university for this purpose. Each project will be individually funded based on its particular budget, and there will be no other continuing or recurring charges for items such as space, facilities, etc. C. The agency's sponsorship of sensitive research projects would be completely deniable since no connection would exist between the university and the agency. D. Excellent professional cover would be provided for up to 3 biochemical employees of the chemical division of TSS. This would allow open attendance at scientific meetings and advancement of personnel standing in the scientific world, and as such would contribute a major efficiency and morale booster. That was the end of page 140, and that was starting off on page 141. And 140, it says downgraded to confidential. By authority of 187475, date June 1977. And then I'm assuming this is a lot of the same. IMPDET CL by 187475. Copy number / of 2. Back to 141. E. Human patients and volunteers for experimental use will be available under excellent clinical conditions with the full supervision of censored. F. There would be available the equivalent of a hospital safe house. G. It is expected that the output of useful results of the chemical division in the biochemical field will be greatly improved through a more efficient use of technical personnel who would be able to spend more of their time on actual laboratory work. H. Censored. I. Excellent facilities would be provided for recruiting new scientific personnel since members of the chemical division working under this cover will be in daily contact with members of the graduate school of the university. J. The regular university library and reprint service will be available as a source of technical information. Section 8. Funding. It is proposed that $125,000 be granted to Censored. If approval is granted, TSS will arrange for payments to be made under the procedures and controls of MKUltra. These funds would come out of the presently approved TSS research and development budget for FY 1955, and no new funds are involved. Excuse me. The funds would be transferred as a grant to Censored. In turn, Censored will match these funds with an equal amount and donate a total of $250,000 to the university as outlined in paragraph 5. The sum total of $125,000 would be entirely in the nature of a grant and would, in due, end of page 141, beginning of page 142, course be merged with the entire $3 million raised for the construction of the wing. The agency would retain no residual interest in the building or title to any equipment or facilities purchased with this money. This single grant will constitute the agency's entire participation in the new hospital wing. There will be no recruiting obligations in the form of annual support of the hospital or additional grants. Transmission of agency funds to Censored will be made through previously established cover channels set up by the Censored for similar transmittals in the past. The donation on Censored books will be shown as having been received from Censored. In the future, when TSS sponsors sensitive and research projects which are to be carried out in Censored, each project will be individually financed through Censored, as it has been in the past, in accordance with previously established procedures and controls using allotted portions of the annual research and development budget. The university will be totally unwitting of agency sponsorship, and the projects to every outward appearance will be sponsored by Censored. In the event of Censored death, Censored will continue in being, and any activities under this project will be continued through Censored and will be unaffected by his death. Section 9, Memorandum of Agreements. A memorandum of agreement will be signed with Censored, outlining to the greatest extent possible the arrangements under which the hospital space under his control will be made available to Chemical Division personnel, and the manner in which cover will be provided and other benefits obtained. No contract will be signed, since Censored would be unable to reflect any of the agency's contractual terms in his arrangements with the university when Censored makes the donation in question. The memorandum of agreement will be retained in TSS. Section 10, Security. All security matters details are being coordinated with the TSS Liaison and Security Office. End of page 142, beginning page 143. Section 11, Resultant Financial Savings. The $125,000 to be contributed by CIA plus the $125,000 in matching funds provided under PL 221 to the building fund will be more than offset in a few years by the savings which will result from use of this nonprofit fund. If a research project at Censored or other educational nonprofit institution is sponsored by the U.S. government, it is customary for the government to pay for salaries, equipment, supplies, etc., and for overhead as well. In the case of Censored, the overhead amounts to 80% of salaries. However, if a non-profit foundation, such as Censored, sponsors research at a non-profit institution, the funds granted for the work are customarily used to pay for salaries, equipment, supplies, but not for overhead. The government dollar thus buys considerably more research through Censored than would be the case if no cutout were used. Section 12, Legal Matters. This matter has been discussed with Censored of the Office of General Counsel. He is fully aware of all details surrounding this grant. End of page 143, beginning of page 144. April 9th, 1958. Memorandum for the record. Subject: Trip Report. Visit to Censored, 7th April 1953. 1. The purpose of this trip was to make arrangements for closing out the Censored project. Censored had been given ample previous notice that such was likely to be the intent of the visit, and he prepared himself accordingly. 2. It was explained to Censor that it would not be possible to carry over funds beyond the end of its current fiscal year. Therefore, all work would have to be completed and all payment made prior to 30th June. This deadline appeared acceptable to him, and it was agreed that I would make my final visit there to receive reports and attend final details on 16th June. Censor did not have a current financial report, but he estimated that the funds currently on hand would be sufficient for the remaining expenditures. He agreed to send the Society within the next 10 days a more exact statement of current balance and estimate remaining expenditures. I tried to impress on him strongly that transfer or additional funds and or return of unexpected funds must be completed well before the end of the fiscal year. 3. Of the 30 cases called for in the original design, 13 have been completed, but only 4 have been transcribed from the tapes. In addition, there are 8 cases in progress, of which 2 are already in interview and 6 are worked up to the point of having the lists of questions prepared. It was agreed that to meet the deadline, we would have to limit the design to these 26 cases. 4. It is apparent that Censor is so involved in the administrative problems of the project that he is not paying any attention to the results. Since to date only 4 cases have been transcribed, there is no way of telling what is coming out of it. I assume there were no dramatic reactions because the interviewers would have let him know about them had they emerged. It is possible, however, that our own analysis of the data may dredge up something of value, although I am dubious on this point. 5. Censor gave me his usual long and involved talk on the difficulties he had encountered with which account for the delays. He talked at some end of page 144, beginning of page 145, length about his, quote, experiments, end quote, with hypnosis, some aspects of which are mildly hair-raising. Finally, he made quite a pitch for continuing I don't know what that word says, but the rest of it says, such project as this next year, quote, with realistic, specific deadlines, end quote. I told him we would discuss possibilities after the present project was completed and we had a chance to closely examine the take, censored, distribution, censored. End of page 145, beginning of page 146. Censored, July 18, 1958. Censored. Dear Mr. Censored. The experiment designed to test the effectiveness of certain medication in causing individuals to release guarded information has been completed in accordance with the original experiment design, with the exception that 25 instead of 30 cases were used. This matter was discussed in more detail in my letter of July 15th. Abstracts on all 25 cases, transcriptions of the interviews, Wechsler Bellevue intelligence test, given at the hospital and previously given at this clinic, post-experimental rankings and evaluation sheets at a schedule covering the Drug Administration have all been submitted to you under separate cover. Enclosed is a financial statement which presents the final accounting of the funds allocated by you for use in this project. If for your purpose you require a more detailed summary of what specific professional services were performed, or more detail with reference to travel expenses or any other item, kindly let me know. You will note in this connection that Dr. Censored was compensated in an amount exceeding that paid to Dr. Censored. This was occasioned by the fact that Dr. Censored spent much time checking the files and records at the Censored and Censored prison, selecting cases that might be suitable for our purpose. It was from the cases selected by him that the subjects used in the experiment were finally chosen. I have been instructed to write a check to the Society for the balance in the amount as 01 today. I would like to, end of page 146, beginning of page 147, delay this matter for a few days. Several checks have been written during the recent days, and I would like to be sure they cleared the bank in Censored before closing out the account. You will receive a check in the amount of $1,356.26 early next week. If there is any additional information required, I will be happy to cooperate. Above that text, there is a Mr. and then Censored. And then below the text, on the right-hand side, you have a name or word that starts with the letter V, what might be an E, and then the rest of it is censored out. Underneath the censored portion, you have Executive Director. Move over to the left-hand side, slightly below, you have Censored, and then you have the letters E and C, period. That's the end of page 147. Now I'm on page 148, and I will take a quick break, and I intend to start recording again briefly. Beginning of page 148. Location, blank. The research project will be carried out at the Censored, located at Censored, which is located Censored. The hospital has 1,135 pods or bods, I'm not sure what that says. At the present, not sure what that word is. There are 142 non-psychotics classified as criminal sexual psychopaths. There are four full-time psychiatrists and varying numbers of medical interns, 2 psychologists, 4 social workers, nurses, and attendants. The superintendent of the hospital is Censored, a witting member of the research team. The institution comes under the direction of the Executive Secretary of the State Department of Mental Health, and any research project is normally approved by the coordinator of research. of the State Department of Mental Health. Censored will secure this approval. Censored will make space available, and it is possible for the research team to sleep at the hospital while carrying out their investigation. Subjects. The subjects will be selected from 142 criminal sexual psychopaths on whom there is an adequate previous investigation, including police reports, physical, psychiatric, and psychological. I don't know what that word says. And social historics. The age range of the end of page 148, beginning of page 149. Subjects range from 20 to 70, and there is a it's a bit illegible. And there is a variation of intelligence and social backgrounds, intelligence levels and social backgrounds. That might say investigations, but it's illegible, mostly. The following men are suggested for the research teams: censored and censored. A psychologist who has had extensive experience in examining criminals, has written extensively on a psychopathic sexual deviations, is an authority on polygraph and interrogation methods. Censored for some 30 years, a psychiatrist who has spent his life in the treatment of the criminal insane and I can't read that word. The only institution censored for the care and treatment for the criminal sexual psychopath. And then censored is a psychiatrist who has a large private practice. At the present time, he is exclusively devoting his time to psychoanalysis. He has had extensive experience examining criminals. As a Navy psychiatrist, he has had extensive experience in censored in the field of Eastern cultures, Oriental psychiatry, brainwashing, etc. He has also done drug interrogation with criminals and has engaged in narcoanalysis and hypnoanalysis. End of page 149, beginning of page 150. Censored, a psychiatrist who is on the staff of censored, and maintains a private practice in the field of psychiatry. Censored has had experience in dealing with criminals going back some 25 years, including drug interrogation. Censored, a physician for the past 25 years, has been censored, has had extensive experience dealing with all sorts of criminals and has engaged in drug interrogation. Besides his city position, he also maintains a private practice in the field of general medicine. Censored has suggested one of the psychiatrists from his staff who is interested and has used drugs in the treatment of patients and has also used hypnosis with mental patients. The research assistants have not been selected as yet, but might well include psychologists or medics. not attached to censored. The secretary will be censored. Prevent secretary who will do all the necessary stenographic work in addition to her present duties. Experimental something. Teams of 2 senior professional each will be selected. One team working with the selected group of patients will use straight interrogation, hypnosis, and LSD and hypnosis, and a end of page 150, beginning of page 151. Tetrahydro I'm not sure. I'm unsure with this, but it's some sort of chemical compound. I'm going to move on to the next sentence. Another team working on another group of subjects will use straight interrogation, LSD with interrogation, and tetrahyd. The last part of this chemical is I'm not sure. For those of you watching, you can maybe make it out better, write in the comments if anybody cares to. And then you have acetate. I'm not sure. It's some sort of chemical compound, derivative, and interrogation. Later, the third team with cancer group of subjects will use straight interrogation and a combination of LSD, tetrahydrocannabinol, maybe that's what it is, acetate derivative. That could be what this is. Tetrahydrocannabinol. Tetrahydrocannabinols, THCs. This is not from the reading, if you're listening. Are a group of psychoactive chemical compounds found in the cannabis plant, Cannabis sativa. They are primary active ingredients in marijuana and are responsible for its intoxicating effects. THCs are terpenoids, which are a class of organic compounds derived from plants. They have a complex chemical structure, with the most common THC being delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. Okay, that's all I'm going to read from there. Now I'm going to get back to the document. A meeting of all the members of the research project will be briefed on the drugs and used, and all of this of the pharmacological and and medical knowledge gained so far in the use of these drugs. In selecting groups of subjects for experimentation, the following objectives will be sought. 1. Subjects will be selected who have denied allegations of various kinds that can be checked or strongly assumed on the basis of previously established records. 2. As far as possible, the actual research ran. I'm not sure. The actual research illegible. Administering drugs will not be aware of the drug he is administering. Okay. And placebos will be interspersed with drug administration. 3. Precautions will be taken to neutralize age, intelligence, physical condition, social background, and any other controllable factor in selecting groups. Administration of drugs will be done both openly and surreptitiously. And 4. Sound recordings will be made of the interrogation, and written reports will be obtained in the other cases. End of page 151, beginning of page 152. And then 5. Eye care, I'm not sure. Illegible care will be exercised in illegible methods of interrogation as far as this can be done. The results of the interrogation with drugs and other techniques will be checked against existing records, and qualitative and quantitative reports will be evaluated. Accurate and uniform reports will be kept, and reports will be submitted on the basis of intern progress and complete projects. End of page 152, beginning of page 153. And I will leave it there for this recording. And I intend to finish this document in the next video.